Avro Lancaster, most powerful and efficient bomber in the world, and one of the most important war-winning weapons yet devised by the United Nations. Its fame is already established from that first heroic daylight flight to Augsburg, through the 1,000 bomber raids on Cologne and Bremen, to the present day. The Lancaster is a name that is writing war history.
What were your feelings when you were posted to 617?
Well, I was at this station weekly with Mickey Martin, strange enough, and he
was an Australian too, wasn't
he? Was an Australian in the RAF, and he was posted. Gibson rang up, asked him did he want to come back to he explained that there was a special do, and he said, by the way, I understand Tony Burcher's over there with you, bring him back as a gunner.
So you got specifically asked?
Yes.
What information did they give you before you actually started training?
Just that we would be doing low-level training, in formation, cross-country in the daytime and cross-country at night, terminating in some bombing, low-level bombing over Wainfleet.
How much training did you do before you went on the mission?
Well, it was a 5-hour cross-country a day and a 5-hour cross, and we flew pretty well every day when the aircraft weather allowed us to. And ironically, we got pretty good weather about that time. So I can't remember how many hours exactly, but it was a lot of flying.
There must have been a few accidents, I suppose, just practicing.
No accidents.
So they really did pick the cream of the aircraft.
Yeah, I think the pilots were excellent, there's no doubt about it. The navigators were good. But the bomb aimers, who were the map readers, were particularly good. They were able to map read at flying at low level, and that takes good map reading. They were particularly good.
How did you take to flying with Gibson or flying Gibson?
I did, during my tour, I did a couple of trips with Gibson himself. Absolutely, I hasten to add, he was a marvellous pilot, there's no doubt about it, he really was. He was a perfectionist, and also in the air he was very amenable to his crew. He treated them as human beings, which is a bit more than he did on the ground. They thought he was absolutely the ideal bomber pilot, which he was.
Ready for starting, Reg. Contact.
There's the green, Skip.
Now the raid was actually made on the May the 16th, wasn't it?
Yeah.
1943. What sort of night was it?
Bright moonlight, lovely night, beautiful, balmy day on the 16th of May. We took off into full moon, almost daylight.
Which particular dam were you tasked to attack?
To the Mona. And we were number 2 to Gibson. Gibson was to go in, and we were to go in second. And Mickey Martin was to be third. We had to get down to the height, of course, the actual bombing height, which was between 60 and 80 feet. And that was done by coordinating the two lights. The bomb aimer had to set his sight up, and of course before then we had to start the motor up, which started revolving the bomb. The engineer operated that on a little APU, a little two-stroke engine. And of course, all that coordination was going up the front. So it was a matter of all the crew working together on that point.
Now you came under very heavy flak on the way in, didn't you?
Yes, they were both guns. They're very accurate, and they set up a pattern between the two towers. So we had to, at that height, we had to fly between the two towers. So all they had to do was set up a pattern through which we had to fly. They realised when they first, by the time they realised where we're coming from, they put up a wall of fire which we had to fly through. I felt the terrific shuddering of the aircraft. I saw these flames shooting past my turret. I had the turret on the beam, on the waiting for the gun. I could see this flak shooting past us, and you know, so I had the turret on the beam, waiting till it came within my range, because I could only go to 90 degrees on off the axis of the aircraft. He hadn't come into my view then, and then suddenly, with all the flak going around, and so I saw these flames. Suddenly, my turret stopped. And of course, it was the port, it was that one of the port engines that actually drove the hydraulics on my turret. So then it became inoperative. So then this all happened, and next thing I heard, Christ, the engine's on fire. Hobby said, feather it, press extinguisher. And the flames got even worse, so he said, right, prepare to abandon aircraft. I think it was a raid that it certainly boosted the morale of the British people. At that time, it was about the time of Alamein, or at least the time of many reversals in the desert. It was just about the time of Stalingrad. There wasn't much hope there. They're having terrible losses in the Atlantic. And the people were feeling pretty miserable. They just couldn't see the end of the war. They certainly couldn't see Britain winning it at that stage. They needed a morale booster, and I think that really was one. They certainly needed a VC, and of course, if ever there was a well-earned VC, it was Gibson's.